Ever wondered why certain activities make you feel so good? The answer lies within a tiny molecule buzzing inside your brain: dopamine. You see, dopamine is no ordinary molecule. It's a superstar in your brain, responsible for that warm, fuzzy feeling you get when you bite into a piece of chocolate cake, score a goal in soccer, or even when you simply receive a like on your latest social media post. This feel-good sensation is the handiwork of dopamine, a key player in the brain's reward system. Now, you might be wondering, what exactly is dopamine? Well, dopamine is a neurotransmitter, a type of chemical messenger that transmits signals in the brain and other vital areas. When something good happens, your brain releases dopamine. This dopamine then travels to different parts of your brain, delivering the message of pleasure and reward. It's like a courier service of delight, delivering parcels of joy to various departments of your brain. But dopamine isn't just about feeling good, it's also fundamental to our cognitive functions. It plays a crucial role in how we think, plan, focus, and even how we move. From solving a complex mathematical problem to performing a ballet pirouette, none of these would be possible without our friend, dopamine. Now that you know what dopamine is, you might be curious about what triggers this feel-good chemical in our brains. Let's dive right into it. One of the most common triggers for dopamine is success. When we achieve a goal, whether it's a big project at work or finally beating that hard level on your favorite video game, our brains reward us with a burst of dopamine. This is why we feel so satisfied when we accomplish something. It's our brain's way of saying, "Good job, here's a little happiness for your efforts." But it's not all about work and achievements. Our brains also release dopamine when we eat certain foods. Picture a juicy burger, a slice of creamy cheesecake, or even a humble apple. When we eat these foods, our brains give us a dopamine bump, making us feel good and encouraging us to eat more. This is part of the reason why we love comfort food so much. It's literally comforting to our brains. Physical exercise is another big dopamine trigger. When you're jogging in the park or pumping iron at the gym, your brain is busy releasing dopamine. This is what gives you that so-called runner's high, and why you might feel a sense of accomplishment after a tough workout. Lastly, let's not forget about music. Ever wondered why your favorite songs make you feel so good? That's dopamine at work again. When we listen to music, especially music we enjoy, our brains reward us with dopamine. This is why music can lift our spirits when we're feeling down, and why it's such an essential part of celebrations and gatherings. So, these activities and more can give your brain a little dopamine boost. Does that make you want to run a marathon, or maybe just listen to your favorite song? While dopamine makes us feel good, too much or too little of it can lead to problems. Let's think about this for a moment. Dopamine, our brain's reward chemical, is a superstar in the symphony of neurotransmitters conducting our moods, motivations, and movements. But like any superstar, it needs the right management to shine. When our dopamine levels are balanced, it's like a beautiful symphony playing in perfect harmony. Everything is in sync. Our mood is stable, we're motivated, and our movements are smooth. But what happens when this balance gets disrupted? Let's dive into that. Imagine a seesaw. On one side, we have too much dopamine, and on the other, too little. When there's too much dopamine, the seesaw tips to one side. This overabundance can lead us down the path of addiction. Our brain gets hooked on that rush of pleasure dopamine provides, and it craves more and more, leading to a vicious cycle. On the flip side, when there's too little dopamine, the seesaw tips to the other side. This deficiency can result in mood disorders like depression. Without enough dopamine, our brain struggles to find joy and motivation in everyday activities. It's like trying to play a symphony with half the orchestra missing. But here's the good news. Our brain is a brilliant maestro. It continuously works to maintain this delicate balance, adjusting the levels of dopamine based on our experiences, actions, and even our thoughts. However, sometimes it needs a little help. That's where we come in. By understanding our brain's workings, we can make lifestyle choices that support a healthy dopamine balance. Regular exercise, a balanced diet, adequate sleep, and mindful practices are just a few ways to keep our dopamine levels in check. So next time you're feeling out of sorts, remember it could just be your dopamine needing a little fine-tuning. And remember, like everything else in life, balance is key, even when it comes to dopamine. Ever wondered what could possibly damage this crucial feel-good chemical in our brains? Let's delve into the factors that can harm our dopamine system. First on our list is drug abuse. Certain substances can cause a surge of dopamine in our brain, creating a euphoric high. However, consistent use can lead to your brain becoming reliant on these substances for dopamine release, which can eventually lead to a depletion of natural dopamine stores. This is why people who misuse drugs often feel low when they're not using. Another culprit is stress. It's like an unwanted house guest that overstays its welcome. Long-term stress can alter the brain's dopamine system, reducing the overall dopamine output. It's a bit like a car engine that's been running too hot for too long. It eventually starts to falter. Poor nutrition is another factor. Your brain requires a healthy diet to produce dopamine. Certain nutrients, like the amino acid tyrosine found in protein-rich foods, are essential for dopamine production. So if your diet is lacking in these nutrients, your dopamine levels may suffer. Think of it as trying to build a house without the necessary materials. You simply can't do it. Lastly, we have lack of sleep. Sleep is a time for your brain to rest and repair, and this includes replenishing dopamine stores. Without sufficient sleep, your brain may struggle to produce enough dopamine, leaving you feeling sluggish and unmotivated. It's akin to a phone that hasn't been charged properly. It's not going to perform at its best. In summary, our dopamine system can be damaged by drug abuse, stress, poor nutrition, and lack of sleep. But remember, it's not all doom and gloom. By understanding these factors, we can take steps to protect our dopamine levels, maintain a balanced diet, manage stress, get enough sleep, and steer clear of substance misuse. So taking care of your overall health and well-being is also taking care of your dopamine levels. Now, the most important question: how can you regulate your dopamine levels to ensure they're just right? Stepping into the realm of dopamine regulation, there are several practical habits you can adopt. Let's start with something we all love: food. Maintaining a healthy diet isn't just about looking good, it's also about feeling good. Consuming proteins rich in tyrosine, like eggs, cheese, and soy products, can stimulate dopamine production. It's like a party in your brain, and everyone's invited. Next on our list is exercise. It doesn't have to be a grueling marathon or a heavy weightlifting session. A brisk walk in the park or a quick dance-off in your living room can get your heart racing and your dopamine flowing. Regular physical activity is like a natural dopamine booster, upgrading your brain's happiness levels one step at a time. But what about rest? Sleep. The underrated superhero of our daily lives. A good night's sleep is essential for regulating our dopamine levels. It's like hitting the reset button on your brain, giving it the downtime it needs to balance out all those feel-good chemicals. So make sure you're catching enough Z's for your dopamine to thrive. Now let's talk about stress. It's like that unwelcome party crasher, messing with your dopamine levels and bringing the fun down. But don't worry, you've got this. Mindfulness practices like meditation, deep breathing, or even a simple walk in nature can help manage stress and keep your dopamine levels in check. And finally, creativity. Engaging in activities that spark your creative side can also stimulate dopamine release. It could be painting, writing, cooking, or even gardening. Find what makes your heart sing and your brain will thank you. Remember, taking charge of your dopamine levels means taking charge of your happiness. Make it count.